All right, y'all, welcome to the show. So today I have for you an insane decision coming out of the Texas Supreme Court. It has to do with abortion, and it is something I've never seen before, right? Like, this is a state going incredibly rogue on the issue of abortion. And this is the logical endpoint after the overturn of Roe v. Wade. So we'll talk about that. I have some more absolutely devastating facts about Joe Biden's presidential run to give to you. I mean, you can't really call an election this far out from the election, but yes, it's just like that, man. We are that far away from calling it. That's the disaster that we're looking at right now. Then we have the Daily Wire goofballs, including Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles. And, man, they cannot stop thinking about trans people or gay people. And wait until you see the new argument that Michael Knowles is making. It's pretty wild. And then we'll also talk about mainstream media has just flat out erased Joe Biden's Democratic opponents. Like, they are at the point now where they are flat out lying and pretending like they don't exist. I'll show you later. It's a crazy clip. MSNBC, Morning Joe. It is infuriating. So we'll talk about all that and more. Everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to continue to grow the community as much as humanly possible. It helps out massively in the algorithm. It doesn't cost you anything at all. You can also click that bell icon, which gives you a notification every single time a new video drops. And remember, guys, if you'd like to support the channel, it's more than welcome. I've never had a conversation with any advertiser. You guys help build this show from the ground up. So you could support on Patreon or tip on YouTube with the thanks button. And I love y'all. And thank you very much to everybody who already does support the show. Couldn't do it without you. You guys are the best. All right, let's go ahead and dive into it. So we're going to start here with, this is originally in the Washington Post. The Texas Supreme Court has halted an order that allowed a pregnant woman to have an abortion. Now, when you get the details of this case, you will realize how extremist a decision this is. The Texas Supreme Court late Friday night temporarily halted a lower court order allowing a woman who is 20 weeks pregnant to get an abortion, reversing a lower court ruling that marks the first case of a pregnant woman seeking a court order for the procedure since Roe v. Wade was overturned last year. The case involves Kate Cox, a 31-year-old mother of two from the Dallas area who asked the nonprofit Center for Reproductive Rights for legal help in obtaining an emergency abortion in Texas after she learned last week that her fetus had trisomy 18, also called Edwards syndrome. The genetic condition is one that cannot sustain life, as Cox wrote in an op-ed Wednesday in the Dallas Morning News. Almost all such pregnancies end in miscarriage or stillbirth. According to the Cleveland Clinic, babies who do survive often die prematurely. Cox's doctor warned that carrying the pregnancy to term could jeopardize her health and future fertility, including uterine rupture and hysterectomy, according to the lawsuit filed on her behalf. On Thursday, Travis County District Judge Maya Guerra Gamble, an elected Democrat, granted a temporary restraining order that would allow Cox to have an abortion under the narrow exceptions to the state's ban. But Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, in other words, the most corrupt guy in the country, he was brought up on like dozens and dozens of corruption charges, but beat them because of the MAGA Republicans backing him, asked the Supreme Court of Texas to intervene to block Cox from obtaining an abortion. The Texas Supreme Court's brief order on Friday night did not specify when it would make its final decision, but merely stated that the issue raised remained pending before the court. So since then, they ruled against her being able to get an abortion. The Center for Reproductive Rights responded on Friday in a court filing that the request is stunning in its disregard for Ms. Cox's life, fertility, and the rule of law. In a letter addressed to the hospitals where the doctor involved in the case had admitting privileges, Paxton on Thursday had threatened to take legal action if Cox had an abortion in the state. What are you going to do, lock her up? Lock her doctor up? He contended that Cox's doctor did not meet all of the elements necessary to fall within an exception to Texas's abortion laws, and that the judge was not medically qualified to make this determination. That's insane. So the attorney general says, I'm medically qualified to make this determination, but the doctor, literal medical doctor, is not qualified. Paxton said the Travis County judge's order would not excuse the hospital or doctor from civil or criminal liability. He warned that the temporary restraining order will expire long before the statute of limitations for violating Texas abortion law expires. Doctors who perform abortions could be sentenced to 5 or more years in prison in many states. Let's summarize what happened here, because what happened here is, and this is the woman on your screen right now. she has a fetus that has a fatal abnormality. It's not going to survive. It's either going to be a stillbirth or a miscarriage, or if somehow the baby comes out prematurely, it'll only survive a couple days outside of the womb. We know this is going to happen because this exact issue is a documented issue, and this is what happens every single time. Now, not only that, she had already gone to the doctor a number of times with pain and discharge. So let's also understand, she wanted this baby. She wanted this baby. She already has two kids. She was going to have another kid. But by an act of the gods or an act of nature or whatever you want to call it, it's not going to happen. And so instead of looking at the situation and saying, well, nobody has ever qualified more so for an abortion, even in a state that's restrictive on abortion, the Supreme Court overreaches and in extremist fashion blocks her from getting one. So now what's going to happen? Look, that's the thing. There's either going to be a stillbirth or a miscarriage, or the baby's going to die in a couple days, and also you're sentencing her to extreme pain as well in the meantime because she already went to the doctor with pain and discharge. So how does this not fall into the exceptions? Well, that's the thing, guys. You need to understand. With the wording of the laws in various conservative states, they make it nearly impossible to get an abortion. So they might say, for example, life of the mother is an exception where you can get an abortion. Okay, but how do you really know for sure if a mother's going to die, up until 2 minutes before it happens? Like, oh my God, we're losing the vitals. Okay, now you can do it, right? Like, how do you know for sure this mother's going to die? And so many states that have this life of the mother exception, they are incredibly strict, where they're like, I don't care if you're in excruciating pain. I don't care about any extenuating circumstances. I don't care about various other health problems. It has to be you're on the brink of death. You're on death's doorstep. And then we'll maybe say yes. See, that's the problem. And then, some states only have life of the mother exceptions and they don't have health of the mother exceptions. I don't know what the case is in Florida in particular, but for sure what they're saying is the health of the mother is not acceptable. And even they're saying a fatal defect in the fetus is not acceptable either. That's the argument they're making. They're saying you don't qualify. Even though your health is in danger, even though there's a fatal defect in the fetus, I guess their argument is, since we're not convinced you are going to die at any minute, we're not going to allow the abortion. I cannot imagine a scenario with a bigger, more authoritarian government than this. This is an example, straightforward, of this is just healthcare for this woman. This is necessary healthcare for her. And they go, no, we disagree. Because they believe more in the right to protect an abnormal fetus that isn't going to make it than they do to protect the rights of the fully grown woman. So what I need everybody to understand is focus on this situation. Keep this in your mind, because this is what the Republicans would like to replicate all around this country. The original position of the Republicans was like, we just need to overturn Roe versus Wade, leave it up to the states, call it a day. But then when they actually did overturn Roe versus Wade, of course, they moved the goalposts. And now it becomes, well, maybe we do a national abortion ban. Some people argue for 15 weeks. Some people argue for 6 weeks. Some people argue for moment of conception. But this is the direction that the party's going. And this, by the way, is the only thing. For Joe Biden to make a comeback on Trump and on the Republicans, one of the things that they're going to try to do is put abortion front and center and say, look, if you want this in the rest of the country, by all means, go with the Republicans. If you don't, go with us. That's what they're going to do. And that might be a powerful argument, because the thing that's been the biggest electoral liability for the Republicans in the past 3 election cycles, it's been this, and it's been the election denialism. But this is one of the biggest ones, because now, even when you bring up abortion for a direct vote in red states, overwhelmingly, over 60%, people are like, we support abortion rights. I mean, if you give people the facts of this story and you tell them what happened, you'd be over 80% of the country would be like, what are you doing? Of course, give her what are you talking about? Of course, this is healthcare. You have to do it. This reminds me of that story from, I want to say it was like 2012 or so. Savita Hanapanavar, I believe her name was. She was an Indian woman who lived in Ireland, who was a dentist, who needed an abortion because she had a lot of pain, and she was denied an abortion. But then it turns out the pain was from sepsis, and the sepsis ended up killing her. So you had the legal system in Ireland blocked her from getting an abortion, which turned out it would have been a life-saving abortion. And so there was a big, scandal over that, and it was big national news, and people were focusing on it. And I think they even maybe changed some of the laws in Ireland as a direct result of it, because it was just a classic example of, like, you are being too authoritarian. You're being too restrictive. This is insane. And now we're seeing a similar situation here in Texas. I don't think this woman's life is in danger, but the fetus is not going to make it. So now you're basically forcing her to be traumatized, to have a stillbirth, and to deal with the pain in the meantime. There are no words, man. There are no words. And remember, these are the Texas Republicans, the same people who want to cut every single social safety net program for kids. They want to make sure, hey, Meals on Wheels, we don't want any of that here. We don't want any financial support for poor people. But they want to rush in to protect a fetus that's not going to make it anyway at the expense of the health of the mother. The priorities are beyond warped. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.